Awesome. And Josh, maybe before we get into the program, I'll just, prerogative of a co-chair, take a minute. If folks didn't already find a sweet treat somewhere in your house for tonight's meeting, I would suggest you go look at a front door or back door. Hopefully you found a little treat from Jessica and I. Really just wanted to take a moment right now as we're, what's the sports metaphor, maybe like rounding third, headed towards home on this process, to thank you all for sticking with it. This is, I think, unlike a lot of other efforts we get involved in, required pretty long, consistent attention at meetings, before meetings, after meetings, during meetings when we ask you to take notes and facilitate. There hasn't been a lot of downtime or slacking off, and we truly appreciate everyone sticking with it. I think we're getting to a really meaty and impactful final product, and really excited to start to roll it out to the public, starting with Dedham Day this weekend. So thank you to all of you on behalf of Jessica and I for continuing to join us, even though we can't be in person, to continue to populate our Zoom screens.
Thank you. It was unnecessary, but very kind of you.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Thank you. It was great to find.
Josh, take it away.
The children don't eat them before I find them.
Yeah, that's on you. I couldn't do anything about that.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and I will repeat the thanks, and I think and appreciate all of your efforts to make this plan as solid as it is coming together. It's really your feedback and insights that has gotten us where it is. So I don't think we have any members of the public so far, but the Zoom meeting protocols we're all well aware of. We're recording the meeting. We're a small group, so we can feel free to unmute yourself and comment as needed throughout. And we'll recognize public towards the end if we have any show up with us. Master Plan Committee, here's an updated list, but you all know each other. This is more for the public's consumption. We'll continue to share these in the beginning of our presentations as we give more public presentations this fall and winter. But thank you all for continuing along and being on board with this. And the values, which we've all been trying to stick to throughout this process, our 20th meeting, so our 20th conversation following along with this guidance. And I think it's served us well. So thank you for coming up with these at the beginning of the process. Tonight we have a good amount to cover, but maybe not as contentful as some of the past meetings. So maybe hopefully be a little more relaxed this evening. We're going to give a brief update on the topic strategies, talk a fair amount about the fall and winter engagement approach and the events that are coming up and what's going on, and the fall open house specifically, which is the nearest bigger event. There's the Dedham Day, which is this weekend, but we'll talk about that too. But the open house is coming up pretty quickly on October 5th. Then there's the vision statement, which we have a dedicated few, a subgroup of committee members who are interested in the vision statement have been discussing outside of our regular committee meetings. And we have a updated vision statement, which we'd like to share with you this evening and get additional feedback on. Hopefully you'll find it in a better place than where it was left about maybe a year ago this time, last fall. And then I want to talk briefly about the master plan as a final product and just the outline that we're thinking about so that we can get your insights or feedback on that before we get too far along in putting all that together. And then some next steps. Any other items anyone from the committee or anyone else would like to add or discuss this evening? All right. So diving right into the topic strategies update. As you recall, so June and July, those were both pretty packed meetings, and thank you. I'm sure that you're all a little exhausted from those. I know that our team was from all that in-depth conversation around the strategies. But we did 4 topics per session. We got through a lot of good insights and information from you all, and then have compiled that. I think each of our staff have gone back and reflected on the discussion that they had with you and have made some revisions to the strategies based upon that discussion. And the strategies really remain a work in progress. You'll see in our fall engagement approach, the strategies are the focus of what we're trying to get feedback on this fall in a variety of ways. And so they will continue to be improved and worked from now through, I would say, November. And then we'll try to get them a little more solidified. I think the goals, we did in those conversations end up making a little bit of changes to some of the goals and some of the topics, but the goals for the most part, I think have settled down and are looking pretty solid. I just wanted to give a brief kind of overview, not get into sheets and sheets of language again, like we had before, but just some highlights of what I got, what I took from some of the staff changes and reflecting on them. We do have, maybe we'll email them to you. I don't think I'll interrupt my sharing of the screen right now to show you them, but we do have both some posters that are developed and some handouts that will be printed for people to take with them that have the strategies written out at Dedham Day this weekend. And then we're trying to come up with the best ways to share this information both at the open house and at events like Dedham Day, because it's a lot of text, and it's a lot of text we've all been working hard to get just right and wordsmith a lot. So it's difficult to share, for example, a summary of that text if we want people to weigh in on the text we've been working so hard on. So we're trying to find that balance between way too much information versus getting people really to weigh in on the things that we're developing. So that's a work in progress, but we'll have the first kicking of that tires of that work in progress this weekend at Dedham Day. So in terms of economic development, there was some work done. We have that tagline, which we've been calling the big idea, but it's really just a summary of kind of the overall goals of the topic. And so Jen did some revision on that big idea summary for economic development. She did clarify a decent amount of the language throughout the strategies based on your discussion, taking terms like wayfinding as an example, and just clarifying within the strategy a little bit what that means, just so that the terms and strategies are more accessible. And then one specifically that was added was a strategy identifying dedicated funding for small business support, and then adding language around regional opportunities and partnerships. I think in a few of the strategies, she added that in there as a way to expand economic development. In transportation and connectivity, this was one of the ones where some goals did get modified based upon the discussion. There was I think a fair amount of concern that congestion, it's like traffic congestion specifically, wasn't showing up enough in the language. So they've modified, Travis and Mara have modified goals to include the words congestion and traffic. I think it shows up now in a couple of goals. And the strategies and actions, for the most part, other than those congestion and strategy or congestion and traffic changes at the goal level, the strategies and actions have stayed pretty similar to what they were before. I think you guys were pretty well on board with where this one was headed. And they've gone ahead and now have also a level underneath that developed where they have framed out actions with potential leads and timeframes. So the transportation topic area is looking pretty solid in terms of a full outline of the information. In terms of land use and zoning, I took the discussion to heart, and overall, I would say what I tried to do was clarify and simplify a lot of the concepts that in the language that was being used. I removed some overly specific items from the strategies, and we'll put those back in as actions. And so just leveling out a little bit for myself where the information is for land use and zoning, and got it back a little more consistent with where some of the other strategies were, a little bit of single voice and level setting. And then clarified the strategies around planned growth and addressing impacts and deficiencies based upon things we were talking about. So yeah, I think that the land use and zoning strategies are looking better overall. They're a lot more succinct now, a lot less words. You wouldn't be able to tell necessarily from there's still a lot of words on the poster, as Jeremy could attest to, but I think it's getting much more succinct for that topic. For public health and livability and housing, Elaine added some examples underneath the specific strategies just to help clarify what the concepts were, because we weren't all as familiar with public health concepts that she was putting into the strategies. So I think those are helpful to make it more accessible. She's included some more specific references to existing programs to make the strategies more actionable where those programs exist. So she did have a few, I think 2 or 3 programs that she names by name now in the strategies. And then for Alex, I think overall the insights that he received was that you all like the direction that the housing strategies are headed in, but you wouldn't know where to start or wouldn't know how to really make them actionable or how to even like make progress within that topic. So his big change was that he's added a capacity building chart, and that will be a part of the housing strategies, and we'll figure out a way to make that an item. I'm not sure if all the topics in the end will have a capacity building sort of instruction manual, but I think for housing, it looks really good. It includes things like, developing a housing partnership, which the town has underway, and other items that he's got identified, which are sort of a precursor to the strategies to really build the capacity to undertake the strategies. So we'll figure out how to integrate that. And then overall, we've also done a little bit of simplifying and reducing the language. On natural, cultural, and historic resources, community facilities and services, Courtney has, again, looked at reducing and clarifying language overall, made it a little more succinct, a little tighter, establishing a point person at the town hall to help with nonprofits and increase capacity. A lot of the feedback was that many of the strategies, there are nonprofits which do these things very well in the town, but there isn't necessarily a town department doing the same work or capable of doing the same work. So it's about leveraging those partnerships and having maybe a point person to do that. We focus some on Community Preservation Act, CPA, but looking beyond that also and other funding mechanisms that might be present for natural, cultural, and historic resources, and reducing what some of you thought came across as a little too neighborhood focused orientation. So we made it a little more town-wide in certain cases. And then so far we've got minimal changes in community facilities and services, but I'm continuing to talk with Courtney about what might be appropriate there. And then in governance, the changes were interesting. So a lot of feedback around the ability of the town to have control over some of the strategies. For example, increasing representation and diversity in the elected positions. And there's certain things that the town has control over and can do, but there are certain things in that are not controlled by the town. So we tried to get that language a little more refined so that it's clear what's within the town's ability to affect. And then separated out the staff side of that diversity and representation equation and the board, commission, and elected body side of it. So there's sort of two areas to look at. And then put an emphasis on staff training, added the Citizens Academy, which is would be like the Dedham Police Academy, training citizens to be more engaged. I think that's a fantastic idea. And then looked at assigning responsibilities for some of these, like the workforce demographic report. As a side note too, Brian spoke with town manager Leon, and he has basically, I think, had 2 conversations with him to make sure that the governance strategies seemed aligned with where Leon is, and make sure that he had his insights about what's underway or might be in progress. Yes, Andrew.
This all sounds great. I was just looking on the Designing Dedham website to see if we can actually read these somewhere.
What's on the website currently is the old version. So we will, I think the most expedient way to get them to you all is to email them to you, which I will,
thank you.
Maybe I will try to do even in this meeting if I get a moment where I'm not behind the microphone. But that's, or Jeremy, actually, if you want to forward the handout email that I sent this morning, that might be the easiest way.
And Josh, do you think you guys can get the revised versions onto the website by Sunday, just so that people who see it at Dedham Day, if there's interest, will see the updated version.
Yes, yeah, I can work with Elise to get those uploaded. I would, yes, we'll upload what we have. I think there's a better way for us to present it on the website than what we have right now, but that's,
Right.
it's sort of funny because it's all, we're kind of, I don't know what the metaphor people like to use, we're building this ship as we fly it sort of thing. So
Right.
as these products are evolving, I think there's ways to do them better as we finish the most recent draft.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so any other comments or thoughts about, I know it's a little difficult because I'm just giving you high level and you're not able to see all the language, but I guess I'll stop talking and give a pause for everyone to respond in a moment. But the thing I would say is we'll send back to you the language which is current, and then it will remain sort of ever changing and updating. We'll continue to iterate on it. But if you want to take a look at that updated language, and if you have feedback, just let us know. You can drop us an email or give us a call. Hello, Shaw.
Hello, Josh. Sorry to be late.
No problem.
And I'm going to have to leave early, I'm afraid. So
does anyone have any thoughts about this summary or anything that's been burning over the last 2 months in terms of topic strategies that you'd just like to let us know?
This slide reminds me, like, it sounds good what you've shown. This slide reminds me, there were some comments about funding, and it seemed like another one where maybe emphasis could be put throughout about identifying funding sources. So just seeing this slide reminded me of that.
Yes, that's a good point. And funding, I think funding will show up, as we've mentioned, more squarely once we get down to those final actions, because we will identify the responsible parties and time frame and potential funding sources. Not everything, unfortunately, has a potential funding source for us to identify other than sort of the town budget, but where there are external sources, we do try to get that. All right, any other thoughts on these?
I like it.
We've got, I think, really good progress. What I like about these, we give kind of a baseline and we try to put some ideas out there, but then you all make it 100 times better with your insights because you know the town so well. So it's really good to see this next version, which has your insights included. All right. So next, let's talk about the fall and winter engagement strategy. So again, we're in this 2-year process. I think Sarah's analogy is a good one, that we're rounding third base towards home. We're nearing the end of this process. There's a lot going on this fall and early winter, but we're really trying to finish what has been a very strong community-oriented process with a very community-oriented ending. And not just promote the fact that the plan is coming to a conclusion, but really still try to remain open and flexible with the content in such a way that we are really inviting more feedback and information at the strategy level, at the goal level, at the vision statement, and refining all these things as late as we can to make sure that they're integrating everyone's feedback and thoughts. And then finally, we're just trying to build excitement and commitment for implementation of all these great ideas. So that's really what we're about here. So let's talk about the roster of events, which I think showed up in one of your emails, but we'll look at it now. And then the other things that are going on in the background. So Carolina's not with us this evening, but she has been, as a response to what we talked about, I think maybe in the spring, of the demographics of the attendees of our meetings, which have skewed white compared to the town's demographics. We've been doing specific outreach to residents of color. And Carolina has now performed, I don't know if she's performed them or has them scheduled, but she's somewhere, I think, rounding towards 12 interviews with residents of color. Some of those I don't think are going to be completed next week. They're not completed yet. But so those, and then what she is doing, she's doing that in a confidential way. So Those interviewees are blind even to myself. And she's compiling notes, and she's doing that so people feel comfortable just giving us their honest opinions about what the town, where the town needs improvement or strategies or help. And then she's compiling the feedback from those interviews in a memorandum to me, which we can then share with the committee, which we'll basically look for themes in and see if there are themes which are different from the themes which have shown up in the planning work from our other sources. And where we need to make amendments or insertions, we will do so. And then we can decide as a group with the committee if those amendments should just be folded into the content overall, if they need to be footnoted in some way, or what that process might look like. But so we have another work stream underway, which is will bring content into the plan, or will at the very least reconfirm and affirm the content that is already in the plan. One of those two items. And then the other approach that we're taking, aside from the roster of events, are focus group meetings. So we have defined, I think it's 7 focus groups at this point, which include sort of the leadership level. This is the staff leads, the department heads, the committee heads, board chairs, those types of people, or stewardship organizations like the Dedham Historical Society and others like them that are invited to a meeting around a certain topic, or maybe 1 or 2 topics. And then we will have a focused conversation with them about the goals and strategies and invite their feedback so that they are hopefully feeling invited to be a part of the process and can give us insights either in that meeting or as a follow-up. So that is another way we're hoping to build buy-in and hopefully understanding, and hopefully will lead to support for implementation. So this is the roster of events. Well, I guess I'll pause there because I just laid a lot of information on you. Is there any questions about any of those components I just talked about? Yeah, Josh.
Not a question. I just wanted to just note the appreciation and acknowledgement of the outreach efforts. I think are great, and I would say more than I'm assuming a lot more than what people would probably expect if they haven't been paying attention, if they're not in the know. I think they'd be surprised to hear the level of outreach that's been attempted and mostly successful. So I just wanted to note that.
I appreciate that, Josh. Yeah, so we will, it's all being documented as well in terms of the overall process and approach that's being taken. I think it'll be featured in the plan document itself, and will be a way for us to hold up the results of this process as relevant and substantial in terms of their community support. So a part of that process is what you see on the screen. So we do have a fair amount planned in terms of more public facing events. And these are different than from, I guess, what I would say maybe are less public facing, the ones I just described. The first is this weekend. So Dedham Day is coming up. The master plan will have a booth at Dedham Day. We have invited you all to take a time slot, and hopefully we can maybe wrap that up this evening after I get through this summary. And then the virtual open house is on October 5th, and we invite you all to sign up for that and be a part of it. It will be similar to the open houses we did at the end of last winter, where we have attendees actually choose topics that they want to get into. So they'll only be able to pick 3 in the meeting, but they are giving us, as they RSVP for the meeting, their preference in terms of topics. And from that information, we're going to arrange the topics so that we have repeat sessions and try to do some crowd control a little bit. But that'll be a little different. And we're going to probably use Jamboards, which we've used as a committee to facilitate those breakout discussions so that people can see the language of the strategies. I think I'm getting ahead of myself though, because I cover all this in a few slides. The other elements are virtual office hours. So we're imagining not everyone will feel satisfied by the discussion at a single open house with all this information. So we're offering 2 drop-in open house or office hours is what we're calling them. We're basically just going to open a Zoom line, publicize that the Zoom line's open, get it out there, and then people can just hop in and talk to myself, talk to Jeremy, talk to a co-chair, talk to Carolina, and we'll field people as they attend, and it'll be kind of an informal thing. It's not clear how that will work out or how many people will join us for that, but it's just another opportunity and way to engage for people. We also are developing information posters that will be around physically at some of the town facilities, and we'll have a survey, which is a companion to that, which we haven't designed yet, but that will go out probably in October or November later after the virtual office hours, or maybe in between the 2 virtual office hours actually. And then finally, all of this will culminate in a maybe in person, maybe still virtual celebration of the plan. And the December 4th event, the imagining is that we would have a plan document, a drafted document, which may have a few holes in it, but would be mostly the final document in draft form. And then that would enter a more formal sort of comment period for the planning process, where we say, this is the plan, please have a look. We're going to invite comments on anything in the document for the next month, and then we'll go from there. So thoughts or questions about how all this is rolling out?
I like that you're covering a variety of different time periods, because I think you're going to get different people at 11 to 1 versus 4 to 7, maybe some people we haven't seen much of before. So good thinking.
Josh, in terms of the draft of the plan document, or not finally polished, but substantially complete document, when would you anticipate that would be physically available, or virtually available? What I mean, electronically available? Yeah,
I do want to talk about that a little bit with the committee this evening. We do have an outline of what the deliverable might start to take the shape of. And the thing we haven't done, we've thought a lot about this process, and it's been a little bit of work behind the scenes to get lined up and ready for these events. But what we thought less about is the lead up in terms of the drafting of content and how the committee wants to engage with that content. So for example, if we're thinking that there's a full draft plan ready to be given to the public in some manner on December 4th, what do we need to back out in terms of giving the committee some preview content, so that you're not also seeing it for the first time on December 4th. We have not designed or thought through that behind the scenes rollout as at all really yet. So we need to talk through that and start thinking about it. I think it's clear to me, at least, that we aren't ready, for example, to give you that draft plan like in 2 weeks. So I think there's some sort of happy medium in terms of time for us to be able to pull all this together, and time for the committee to feel like you're getting to see it first.
2 points of sensitivity I wanted to alert you to. First, by statute and by our local bylaw, it is really the planning board that promulgates the master plan in technical terms. They've delegated to us the responsibility to prepare that, but there has to be a point in time when a presentation is made to the planning board. And then secondly, there's, the town meeting occurring in May, in which in past iterations, what we've done is actually present something to town meeting. It was a binder document at that time. And it may be that you want to do it electronically and in printed form, with glossy cover or whatever. So it sits, on tables available for people to pick up. But those are 2 points of some sensitivity, if you will, in terms of getting political buy-in. And in legal terms, it is the planning board that promulgates the master plan. So you ought to build in something in the schedule here that doesn't surprise them, if you will, about a document which they think they have some final say on.
That's a great point. Yeah, we should get this in front of them sooner than later as well, and make sure that they're built into that behind the scenes lead up process and feel on the inside as well. So it's a really good point.
Hey, Josh, if I may respond to that. So Shaw, perfect timing. Actually, tomorrow night, I'll be giving an update to the planning board. And as you probably know, we have two members from the planning board on this initiative, both Jay O'Brien and Jessica. So I think, providing updates to the board and that continuity and that synergy is, I think, very apparent. And I think will, I think only help us, but obviously close coordination. And I envision, that happening in 2022 after we have this, after it's been well vetted by you who have put all, how many hours have you folks put into this? After it's been well vetted by you folks, then it will be ultimately presented to the planning board for their hopeful approval. And then we'll want to share it with everyone, of course, like town meeting. So thank you. I mean, those are very good points, Shaw.
Thank you both.
So the plan for Sunday, which is the soonest of those all the roster of events, so Dedham Day. Hopefully you're all, I've never been to a Dedham Day. It sounds interesting. Hopefully you're all gonna go have some fun. So there'll be a tent for the Design Dedham 2030 process with some of the boards that we're talking about. We'll also have a spinning wheel, which MAPC is gonna bring over to Jeremy probably on Thursday. It seems like might work for my schedule, and then have some handout, some prizes like canvas tote bags with the logo of the DD 2030 process on them. So that's pretty cool, and some candy and things like that. And there was circulated for the master plan committee some slots for members to sign up and be at the tent. I think they were hour or 2 hour slots. So if you didn't get a chance to sign up for those, you should do that, and we can do that now if the co-chairs would so please. And then the way I'll frame the event in our imagination is that really it's a chance for you all as stewards of the process to just talk to residents at that event, answer any questions they may have, to try to just engage with people whatever level they're at. If someone really wants to talk about transportation strategies, then you should have some information there that you can help direct them to content of the plan. But if someone's just like, what's a master plan? Like, you could give them a little bit of insight on what the master plan is and what the process has been. But the way we're imagining using the wheel is actually as an icebreaker to get people who are circulating the event to engage with you at your table, which is sometimes difficult. Make that awkward eye contact and people kind of come over. But if they spin the wheel, we're going to actually put the logos of the icons and the names to help everyone out of the different topics. So they spin the wheel, it comes up on a topic, and then you ask them to take a look at the topic and just give you a thought with a Post-it note if they have anything to share about that topic. And then also, if they would like to, they could put a dot on the board at the topic that they think is, or the goal for that topic, which they think is the highest priority. So those are the ways that could be a little bit of icebreaker. People don't have to do that if they don't want to, but if someone's a little hesitant about how do they engage with you at this table, that would be an easy way and a fun way. I've been to events like this, and a spinning wheel is always a hit, usually when you're also giving away something with it. So you've got those tote bags and things. Thoughts or questions about this?
Well, you can put me down for 12 o'clock. That's helpful. And secondly, is there going to be any sort of prep about, managing the spinning wheel and all that sort of thing? It may not be perfectly self-evident when we arrive. Maybe all the rest of the committee has done spinning wheels before, but I haven't, truth be told.
Well, good thing, Shaw. I will be there to walk you through the spinning wheel. It won't be that complicated. And I mean, ultimately for committee members, it's really just about, discussing the plan with the community. We haven't really had chances to do this other than virtually. I mean, we haven't been able to have that dynamic human interaction through this process. And this will be our first touch. And ultimately, it's just, hopefully some folks want to stop by and just see what's going on. And this will be a chance for both myself, staff, and you, of course, committee members, to talk about all the work that you've done. Hopefully people are interested, and hopefully we'll have a few takeaways and some conversations from some folks, and we'll get some new folks that didn't know about this. We've obviously hit a lot of folks to get the word out, but there's still more, and this is just another one of those intersections and chances for interaction with folks. So really very informal. And I'll help you with the spinning wheel, and I'll be there for technical assistance if you spin it too fast and break it. So make sure you don't, because Josh will charge us for that.
Yes, it should be pretty straightforward. It's basically a wheel with the little pegs around it. You can just give it a spin, and then wherever it lands, it'll be on one of the various 8 topics that we've been going over. And so it's just a way for people to say like, oh man, this is so much information, I don't know what to do. And then they spin the wheel and it says it lands on housing. And then you can say, okay, well, do you have any thoughts about housing in Dedham? Look, if you come over here to this board, there's a whole little background on housing in the town and some facts and figures. And here are the goals that we've got established. Do you have any thoughts about which one of those is important? That sort of thing.
Yeah. And so I thank you, Sarah, for putting the link. If you haven't seen that already, whatever time you can commit. I know it's Sunday, it's going to be a nice day too, but if you're out there, if you can donate half an hour or an hour just to hang out and talk to your community, that would be very helpful. So thank you.
And we only need 2 per time slot. I mean, Shaw just mentioned noon, and that was what I was looking at too, but it doesn't look like we need anybody until the 3 and 4 o'clock time slot.
Sure.
I think priorities are those later times. Right now, just so we have full coverage. So if you're able to do later, but if Nate, if you can only do noon, I will switch to later so I can be flexible. So I'll move around according to where there's need. And I'd encourage people, I know technically we would take you for any amount of time, but we are hoping that you'd be willing to do it for at least an hour.
All right, thank you all for participating in that. And we're excited to hear how it goes. And as Jeremy said, this has been a rarity for our event or our process to have an in-person event. Is there any other thoughts about Dedham Day or anything else you all have questions about or need to communicate? All right, so then the following event would be the fall open house. And I did give you a little bit of insight about what that'll be, but that's on the evening of October 5th. It's a Tuesday from 7 to 9. The Zoom registration is up and live. It is an event we're asking people to register for because we're expecting some bigger numbers. Right now, we don't have bigger numbers. I think we have 12 registered participants, but that's not that unusual from other events. We had a very steep climb in terms of attendee registrations as the event got closer. Carolina is working with the outreach working group to help in the same manner that they have with the other events to get the word out and really push those registrations up over the next couple of weeks. The idea is we will give a very brief presentation and overview of the entire process so that participants who don't know much about it yet can learn the background, hear what we've been, what the process has done to date, and give a summary of the overall content and how that's shaping up. Then the meat of the session will be 3 breakout groups, which we've done before. The little difference in this case is that we're going to try something. It's a little experimental. We'll see how it works out, but there's an option in Zoom where people can self-select the breakout room that they want to talk about. So we're going to offer in those 3 slots a variety of topics that are most popular. We're asking people to tell us what their most interested topic is as they register. So based upon that data, we're going to preload those 3 slots so that, transportation and connectivity is always a popular session, for example. So that might show up in 2 of the slots, or maybe even all 3 of the slots, depending on the number of people that say that's what they want to talk about. And then the other less popular topics might show up only once in one of the slots, or maybe they'd show up in 2 of the slots. And then that'll allow our staff to be able to rotate as well. So we're going to try to have at least 2 MAPC staff in each of those breakouts to both facilitate with the topic lead and then also take notes. The idea would be that the staff would give a very brief overview of that topic inside of the breakout session, and then use a Jamboard setup where we have all the written content in a document where people who are in the breakout room can go to that document themselves through a link. They can look at the information on their own screen and also post comments and thoughts on their screen using the Jamboard. So all that might get a little messy, but then we'll hopefully get a bunch of data that we can clean up after the meeting. It's also a little, we're aware that it's a little bit of a risk in terms of the potential for disruptive behavior on the Zoom, both through the Jamboard or through the self-selection of the breakout rooms. So we're going to be on sort of extra alert for Zoom bombing of some kind that evening. But that's partly why the registration for this type of event is important. Questions about that? And then we'll have an overall overview, which goes through the other roster of events. And at this session, we'll be promoting, probably at the beginning and the end, or maybe even in the middle also, the office hours sessions, so that we let people know that this isn't their only chance to give us feedback. If they feel that this setup was not enough for them, or they didn't get to talk to people enough on our team, then we'll give them the chance to talk to us a lot more at the office hours. All right. So any questions about all of that engagement stuff? You guys are being easy on us this evening. So
No questions. I just wanted to have it be so yours isn't the only voice, Josh. So
thanks, Jessica.
thank you for this.
So let's get into the vision statement a little bit. This is the biggest sort of content lift for us this evening. And as we, I think actually, well, I don't know actually if this, did we send, Jessica, I guess maybe you could clarify, did we send this to the language to the full committee yet, or we need to follow up with that?
So I think what the full committee received was the slides, which did have some of the initial language. We made a slight change to that.
So we can probably follow up with the full committee after we have this discussion tonight and give you, we have a document where we've tracked the sort of evolution and incremental changes of the vision statement. So you can see how it's evolved. And that might be helpful. But what we wanted to do is just share with you where the current language is now, which we think is a big improvement from where it was before. And it basically, there's a lot more pieces to this vision statement than there were before. And this is what the outline looks like. So we do have a brief introductory statement, which just frames this process and what the vision statement is and what this process is about. And then we have a section which is a little bit of a precursor to the vision statement itself, which we're calling Dedham Yesterday and Today, which gives an overview and highlights some of the more sort of critical formative moments in Dedham's history, and provides the background for in context, I think, for where the town has been and where this master plan fits in. And then the vision for Dedham tomorrow is the actual, there's the vision statement, which is a little bit of the prose. And then underneath that is a series of bulleted commitments, which add more detail to the language, which is in a vision for Dedham tomorrow. And those bulleted commitments really do have a very direct connection to the topics. So the topics then, you can imagine, are nestled right under those bulleted commitments. And the overarching themes, which we had talked about in previous master plans and show up in that diagram that we've shown you about the master plan content, are nestled within the language for a vision for Dedham tomorrow as well. So this is one of those moments, like I've been saying, that the difficulty is sharing all this content is right now it's a bunch of language. And in the end, it will be a bunch of language in the document, but we're going to try to figure out some way to help make it a little more accessible and dress it up. But for now, we have a lot of language. So this is that first piece, which is the introduction. And it's really kind of the basics of what this process has been about and what master plans have been about in the town. So maybe to give you all a moment to just process the language, I will go ahead and read it because I don't want to try to ad-lib since we've been doing so much effort on the specific language itself. So I'll read it and I'll give you a moment to absorb it too. So the introduction reads, Dedham's master plan addresses the current needs and priorities of the town for the next 10 years based on a robust community engagement process with input from all of Dedham's neighborhoods and engagement with thousands of residents. This is a result of Dedham's commitment to long-range planning. In 2007, town meeting voted to engage in a comprehensive master planning process every 10 years. The process is an important way to have the residents of the town speak to each other, reflect on where the town is today, and to define new ideas and ambitions for the town. The Designing Dedham Master Plan Committee drafted this vision statement to reflect the overarching values and priorities that have been shared by the community members through surveys, meetings, and workshops over the course of this 2-year process. The vision statement has been written, reviewed, edited, and rewritten to ensure it is representative of the broad diversity of Dedham residents and inclusive of the ideas and ambitions that have been articulated by hundreds of residents. And then now we step into the next section, which is setting the stage for some of those highlights from Dedham's past and bringing it up to the present moment. I'll continue reading so you can all reflect on it too. So it reads, Dedham is a vibrant community with diverse residential neighborhoods, thriving and convenient commercial and neighborhood centers, rich and well-managed natural and historic assets, and a strong record of fiscal responsibility and financial management. Dedham acknowledges that the history of this place and its land predate the history of the town and recognizes the Massachusetts and Wampanoag people on whose ancestral lands the town of Dedham resides. The positive beginning, marked by Dedham's incorporation in 1634, also marks a painful era and an ending for many diverse Indigenous peoples. Since its incorporation, Dedham has embraced forward-thinking, ambitious, and innovative efforts, such as creating the country's first man-made canal, the Mother Brook, to attract industry, mills, and a diverse ethnic population. The town took early steps to advance education, opportunity, and equity for its residents by establishing the nation's first tax-supported and free public school. Dedham supported the defense of human dignity and freedom through the organization of Civil War regiments, including the historic 54th Regiment at Camp Meigs. The town has proactively and responsibly planned for town facilities and amenities, such as the care and stewardship of the historic Endicott Estate and the grassroots support and partnership to reuse the Avery School as the Mother Brook Arts and Community Center. And then this is a continuation of that same statement. Through its history, the town has faced challenges, and 2 years of this master plan have been a challenging time, a time of dual pandemics. The first pandemic, the global spread of COVID-19, has both ended and upended lives. It has also highlighted the importance of planning for a future with more risks, defined new ways of engaging in civic discourse, and confirmed the importance of integrating public health with the master plan. It has also made painfully clear the second pandemic through the disparate outcomes and impacts of COVID-19, reconfirming the racial and social inequities that have been present for generations. The nationwide reckoning with continued racial and social injustices has grown an awareness that all communities need to re-examine practices, conventions, and regulations that serve to exclude groups of people from full participation in opportunities, institutions, and resources. In Dedham, this re-examination sheds new light on some parts of its history where past practices may not match current ideals. It is through the continued experiences of these dual pandemics that the vision statement for this master plan is written with a sense of optimism, knowing that the challenges faced by the town are becoming more widely known and more clearly articulated, and that a dialogue is underway to meet these challenges and enrich the lives of all residents. So maybe I'll just keep going so you can see it all, and then we can circle back and talk about whatever you'd like to get it focused on.
Josh, if I just could add one word, I think that this is terrific. I regret that I may have to leave very shortly, and I just applaud you. I think it's very well done in terms of commas and prepositions and this and that. I mean, we'll leave that to a later time, but I just thought it was very well done. So wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, Sean. I have noticed there's some grammatical cleanup that needs to occur, just reading it back.
Yeah, I gotta try to clean up that side. So maybe, you can bring that bag outside. Did you bring that bag outside?
Excuse me.
Susan, you're not on mute.
All right, so
There.
the next portion, just to round us out, is the actual vision statement itself. And this is that third and fourth piece with the bulleted points to follow. And then we can, again, go back and discuss. To read this final portion. As Dedham looks to 2030, the town is poised to continue its great heritage of bold leadership, while at the same time ensuring that such leadership is in service of and with the participation of all its residents. Dedham has the opportunity to advance its legacies of environmental, social, and fiscal sustainability while recognizing that inclusivity and respect are fundamental for the success of the community and the individuals who live here. The town recognizes that all residents, much like the master plan topics, are interconnected and that it is important to remain engaged in the process of drawing the threads of community together so that all residents may enjoy a high quality of life with livable neighborhoods that prioritize walking and biking and embrace inclusion and equity, all through aligned and effective policies. Dedham is committed to this vision by and then I think I will not read all these bullets, but just pause on them for a moment. But the bullets, I'm trying to recall, I think the bullets might have shown up in much more similar fashion in one of the earlier vision statements that you all have seen as a full committee. But we've continued to refine the bulleted points so that they have a clear match with the topic big ideas and summaries that have emerged and make a direct connection to those. So I know it's a lot of information and language, so I'll just stop and give you all a moment to just sit with all this, and I can flip back and forth if you'd like to see more it on the screen, or you might have it at home too. Andrew, yes.
I had read this through before the meeting, evidently, and I did have one reaction to the second page, page 20, it's page 26 of the PDF you sent. You talk about the two pandemics. I thought about that for a while. It's an interesting and well put metaphor, but I'm not sure that it works. And this is why. You're applying a disease model to injustice, to be blunt. And I'm not sure that that works. I mean, we apply a disease model to things like alcoholism, drug addiction, and so on, to make clear that this is not a matter of moral culpability or personal failing, or, you know, this is a physical thing. Injustice is not a disease. It is a moral failing. It's exactly what we're trying to avoid by using a disease model for some of the other things. And so, although it makes for a nice metaphor, we've got these two pandemics that it flows very nicely. I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable with sort of letting people off the hook, if you will, by adopting a disease model of racial injustice. Does that make any sense to anyone but me? Or am I off in la la land? I just wish there were better.
I agree, Andrew. I gotta say, you said it a lot better than I could ever say it. It was kind of just irking me a little bit to call it two pandemics. When to me, they just seem like very different phenomena, and I don't really like the lumping of the two. So I think you said it much better than me, but I do have to say it did kind of strike me a little bit.
I do think it could be reworded in a way like to something phenomena or what, two injustices, two, I don't know, whatever those two things are, the pandemic being one, and then the, inequality of how people were ended up dealing with it could be another one. But I had the same, like, I was wondering what the whole, like, on the edge of my seat, what is the second pandemic you're going to identify, not knowing? And then and pandemic specifically means an endemic that's multi-country, right? Like that you've let slip to multiple countries. So I mean, yeah, it doesn't even fit in the like roughest definition of what we're talking about. I don't know, for the way you're using it in a sentence.
That's good insights. Yeah.
Why don't you just do away with referring to it as a second pandemic and just say, it also made painfully clear the racial and social inequities that have been present for generations. Just cut the middle part of that sentence out.
Yeah, I agree. I think you were reaching for a smooth metaphor to wrap things together. I understand why you did it, what you were reaching for, and I understood the point, but something more direct like what Sharna suggests.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it'll be that difficult to do away with the dual pandemic sort of notion and keep most of the content intact.
I think those are very good comments, and I agree with you, Josh, that it's an easy enough thing to sort of remove a few words and keep the message there. I really think that I feel that this is a fantastic wrapping up of all of the conversation that we had a month ago, and trying to get, there was a lot of ideas thrown out there, and it was really difficult during that meeting to try and figure out how you would manage to put words
Looks like Justin, you might be frozen for a moment. Thought it was me, but it's not. We'll see if when Justin comes back, we'll see if we can get him to finish his thoughts. Any other thoughts?
I had a similar thought to Justin's, I think, although I guess he hasn't finished it. But like, I think it seems so obvious right now to break it up in this way. But it really wasn't obvious at the time when we were all, commenting on that initial vision statement. There was a lot of consternation and churning and comments, and the way this is broken up is really, really good, and it works really well. And I think it really gets at everything the group was trying to communicate in a really nice way. Well done.
Thanks, Deacon. Justin, did you have anything you want to add to finish up? Looks like you're back.
No, I think Diekman got it. It's just I was trying to express an appreciation for how well this came together, all of the various thoughts, and so I think with a few more modifications to a few sentences, it's there. It's
great. Other comments or thoughts?
I just wanted to give Margaret credit for, I think it was Margaret who recognized that actually it's important to note the context of the pandemic. And I think it is really important, right? In both in turn, it has influenced us in so many ways. And so I guess I just wanted to put an exclamation point on that I think that is a really useful addition to this. And it does, I think maybe kind of that is why we were able to then suddenly see all those things, Diekman, as you were saying, that we'd struggled with, but hadn't really been able to put our heads around. So I just, even though Margaret's not here, I wanted her to get the credit for that idea.
Great. Well, we will, as I said, circulate the document, which has this most up-to-date language so that you all can spend a little more time with it. And certainly it seems like it sounds great that there's much more support than I think we've ever had for any of the other previous vision statements from the committee. So it looks like a lot of progress has been made. So appreciate everyone's effort on that. And so with that support, I think what we will do is feel more comfortable sharing this probably at the October open house in that initial presentation. We'll just share it so that maybe not go through it, reading it as I just did, but share it in such a way that people can go take a look at it if they're interested. And then we'll probably also get it onto one of the boards that would circulate at the library or town hall so that people can see the overarching vision. Because I think it's one of the more accessible ways for people. If they can just look at one thing, if they could look at that statement, then they can get into the more detailed information, but they can get a feel for what this is about through the vision statement. So that's great. So I think from what we're hearing, we feel that there's a blessing then from the community standpoint to go a little more public with this. I think it's ready for that. And we do want to get some feedback from the community at large. We haven't really talked to vision statement much yet through this process with them. The other thing, no, I guess that's all I have to say about the vision statement. Any other thoughts about vision statement? Oh, the other thing I was going to say is please do send us at this point, get on your editor's hats, and if there's a misplaced comma or a missing as, which I noticed, then we should all kind of get this buttoned up from a grammatical editing standpoint. Lots of really long, complex sentences, so we can maybe help from that front. All right, I think the last thing I wanted to touch on this evening, we've talked about a little bit from a process and procedural standpoint. We don't want to touch on the master plan as a product and the content and outlining it, just to get we have I think as a team, this is where the pressure turns towards us a fair amount, and we have as a consult team a lot of work to do to get this we have a lot of content, but we don't have a lot of content formatted as a report just yet. So that's our effort over the next month or two. And we have a lot of pieces. So I think relative to some other master plan processes I've been involved in, we have a lot more content than some of the others at this point. But we will be trying to make, like the image that you see on the screen, more digestible and I guess friendly graphic presentation of some of the content and features of the report. So really people can start to get an idea of what this is in a more visually accessible and interesting way, rather than just having pages and pages of text. So the overall content, which you've helped us develop, this graphic that's on the screen, really centers at its core on that vision statement, which I'm feeling much better about now, that it's a little more worked out. And then the themes which flow out of that vision statement, which I think will have, probably in terms of the master plan, will have their own sort of page or two spread, which is devoted to those themes. So they'll have some more language that gets written up about walking and biking, livability and quality of life, aligning effective policies, and inclusion and equity. And then from there, the chapters will really be arranged around the topics, and those topics that you see in this sort of series of concentric circles. You know them all well. And that will be a nestling doll of sorts, a nested doll of sorts of the goals, strategies, and actions. And so that will be kind of, as people want to get deeper and deeper into the information, that will get more and more detailed as you move to the outside of that circle. And the way that it's all starting to shape up as an overall document is we'll have an introduction, which has all of the pieces, an outline of the process, an outline of the number of people we've engaged, the different types of engagement, what this is all about, why a town does a master plan, what Dedham's own regulations around master plans are. All of that background context would be in an introduction to the plan document. And then the next section would be devoted to the vision statement, the overall themes, the diagram I just showed you, and kind of drawing that overall picture of what this content is about. And if people only got from the introductory to the vision statement chapters, they would have a feel for what this plan is about. So it's kind of an executive summary in some ways, though we will have an independent executive summary. Then from there, we will detail a little bit more, as I mentioned, the master plan themes which flow out of that vision statement. And that will really be more about connecting them across the topics. So each of those 4 themes really cross cuts almost all the topics. So we'll highlight how that happens and how those themes are really working through throughout the document. And then we might even come up with some sort of visual graphic or sort of like keyed system where if you're on a goal that touches one of those cross-cutting themes, it might have a, I and E, or I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but a little icon or something to help clue you back into those themes as you're looking through the document and its details. And then from there, the meat of the document, really, the most of the pages will be devoted to the master plan topics. And those, what we're thinking the approach would be is to kind of do like we did with the vision statement, where you'd have a section for each topic, which talks about Dedham today. And it has the existing conditions, we call them. So what's the state of housing today? What are the numbers? What are the demographics? What are the housing units? What's a map of housing, which shows the density of housing in the town or some other characteristics, and really gets you a feel for what's going on in that topic. And then we talk about some of the community input as well. So what did people think was most important? How did they respond to the surveys? What are the themes that showed up in conversations? And then we shift into the next section for each topic and talk about where are we trying to move that current assessment of where people are at and where the facts and figures are at, where are we trying to move that through tomorrow, through the goals, strategies, and critical next steps. And so that would be everything that we've been working on since really probably for the last year, with where we started with the goal conversations at this time last year, and then have moved to the strategies. So that outline of information would form the core of that topic in Dedham tomorrow. And this would go topic by topic. So you would have that information laid out for transportation, that information laid out for housing. And then finally, at the end, we would probably have, usually what happens in a master plan is you have an implementation table, which is at the end of the whole report, which is a summary of all that information in one place, and then adds the detailed features of actions, responsible parties, timeframes, and potential funding sources. And I think we would follow that model here because it just makes it would make the master plan topics section much busier and I think less accessible to get all that information into that section. We want the master plan topics. I hesitate in saying to read more like a magazine because that's always the ambition, but it's always tough to get there with a master plan because we have many more words than images. But we'll try to get the master plan topic section to be more visually accessible and interesting, and not as, it's hard to do that with implementation information. So the implementation stuff I would recommend we do put at the end like that. But one thing we'll try to make the bridge between that last implementation section and the topics is that notion of critical next steps, where we do clue into what we think are some of the top priorities of that implementation table right in the chapter, so people will get a feel for that. So before we get too far down, actually, we've started working on all of this, we're pulling everything together. In very short order, we're going to be running full steam in this direction. We thought we'd share this outline with you all to get your feedback, because it's much easier for us to make some adjustments now than it is a month or two from now. And when we have all of this sort of developed in this direction, and then one of you has a really great idea and says, wait a minute, if only you just tweaked it like this, and then it will take us hours and hours and hours to undo. But right now it's very easy to undo. So if you have reactions or thoughts about how this could be made better, we'd be all ears. I saw Diekman unmute and then Justin put his hand up. So maybe Diekman, if you want to kick us off.
I just had a question about the themes. Is when I'm looking at the graphic, the visual graphic, is fiscal responsibility, sustainable and inclusive, are they themes as well, or are those something different?
Those are the what I would call maybe the core tenets of the vision statement. Okay. Those were the things which were the priorities, okay, the priority values that people responded to in that very first survey that we had with the community. The themes are what emerged from almost like from the bottom up. So through all the different topic discussions, we again and again came back to those same themes, which was a little different than the core values which showed up for the vision statement. But they're both connected closely. And Justin.
So my question or thoughts are a little less on this outline, which at least initially seems fine to me, has more to do with knowing all too well the amount of time and effort it takes to compile and be able to write up an organized final product. Is there enough time? Do you have enough time between now and this December 4th date, especially given that you're going to continue asking for some sort of feedback all the way through in November? Is there going to be time to put this together in a cohesive way by this December 4th date? And exactly what this December 4th date is, where did that come from, and or why are we celebrating before it's really done?
Yeah, I think those are good questions. I feel like we are, I'm cautiously optimistic that while the timeline is tight, that we can pull it together. The December 4th date was really, so we do have a motivation, I think, and strong ambition to try to keep it as close to this 2-year process, which we set out to begin with, to not extend it too far. And so the December 31st, 2021 is sort of that target end date. So we did want to have a more a plan release of a draft document, which would not be sort of on December 30th. If we want to wrap it up on the 31st, we want to give ourselves a little time on the back end. In terms of, I think the thing that makes me the most nervous about the timeline is what we touched on at the beginning of this meeting, is the time that's necessary for you all and other parties like the planning board to review a draft before the draft goes more public. And I think that's the part that might get a little crunched. But I think now that we've identified that this meeting, we need to just kind of outline that and talk through it. From a very sort of practical logistics and staffing perspective, it just happens, which is very fortunate for us in the process, that my other project commitments personally as a principal planner at MAPC are wrapping up pretty much at this month. So I have almost at this point pretty clear runway to focus on, not that I haven't been focused on Dedham for the last 2 years, but to focus almost solely on this as a product, as a final product. And we actually do also have the budget available to support me as an expensive planner in our agency to work on it almost full time. So I feel like from that perspective, I mean, there's not many plans I get that much time to work on. So that's, I think, pretty good. And Jessica.
That's great news that we're going to get an exclusive contract with Josh Fiala. So that's terrific. So that I had the same question as Justin. So I appreciate that answer in terms of the timing. I have, I guess, just a question. I guess 2 questions. And so one is, I think we've talked about this. I just want to spell out that I think we anticipate that this would be mostly a document people would access online, right? So there would be links and I think it makes it easier to navigate and all of that. Do you envision that we would also print out some versions as well, just for posterity and people who, I guess, prefer to read it that way?
I'm sorry, Jessica. I think my internet is a little unstable, and I didn't actually catch much of that.
I can answer that, Jessica. I'm sure there'll
Okay.
be folks that want a physical, tangible copy, and we'll be able to supply those.
But the default would be we'd expect people to access it online, I would think, right?
That would be the priority. And I
Yeah.
don't want to buy 300 reports that cost, I don't know, 10 to 20 bucks a piece, and
Right.
having them sitting on shelves here. So, but we
Right.
will produce them, because there will be folks that want, and of course, all the members here, you want a tangible copy for your coffee table, autographed and signed by all committee members, of course.
Yeah, so partly the reason I ask is I think the one thing, Josh, as to your question of what idea do we need to have now so we don't have to go in and try to add it retroactively. I just would think that, the more as it's being written, the more hyperlinks that you could create, the better, right? So that if I'm looking at the strategy 1.1 in housing, and it relates to a different strategy in transportation or whatever, to be able to link to that, or to be able to link to the implementation of that one, so that, because I just think the way that people end up using it later on isn't in fact to just read it, from beginning to end, but it's really to be fairly selective. And so I think the more as you're building it, to think about if someone goes in, thinking about this one question, what are the other things that they're going to want to find out, right? And including the implementation steps. So that would just be one suggestion in terms of how to write it. And then my other thing, and I can talk to you about this offline, but I think on the implementation, it just occurs to me, I like the idea of the chart and kind of having a way to track it, talk about who's responsible, who would own it. I do think I would encourage us to recommend forming an implementation committee as well. And so that just may be something you want to add to governance possibly. Is that would be a strategy of governance to have aligned and effective policies, is to have a committee that's in charge of kind of overseeing the implementation or tracking the implementation of the plan.
Great point. And the other, I will say also in terms of the schedule, the other relief valve a little bit would be things like the implementation section. Like, for example, if that's not totally worked out by December 4th, but most of the other content is, and people feel good about it, we've had sort of an incremental sign-off period where we give you a chapter or something and you all have a chance to look at it and say, this is, thumbs up. And then we can get whatever we feel comfortable with out to the community on the December 4th deadline. But if we're still kind of working on some piece of it and we have that ready later in December, I think that's fine too. Nate, yeah. You're still on mute.
There, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Two quick thoughts that maybe are helpful now, earlier rather than later. So first, I would suggest that it's designed to be digital first. And maybe it is printable in some fashion, but I mean, it's the 2020 master plan. And I just think that that's online is its natural home, especially as you're like adding hyperlinks and being able to drill into graphics or anything like that, or look at data sets like Sarah, I think, just messaged. I would think we'd target digital first and make it easier that way with an ability to pull and print. But anyways, that would be my 2 cents for that. And then one other thing just is if we can make sure that every section and every like step along the way has a graphic representation, be it charts or tables or something that's other than just text. Like you just walked us through a vision statement and some of those things where it's very text heavy. But I think the average person is going to flip by that and not want to read and not want to be engaged. So the more that we can have, and not just for existing conditions, but for our plan and our goals and who's responsible and stuff like that, lay it out on a timeline, put it in a table, those types of things. I think it's not just clearer and more likely to be acted on, but it's also will be more engaging and more likely that people will pay attention and understand what it says. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and that's I think one of the things that we haven't had a chance yet to do too much of because of the steady sort of creation and iteration of content. But now that the content's starting to settle down, I think that'll be our next step, is to think about ways that we can dress it up a little bit and get it more camera ready with some interesting graphics or icons or as you say, charts and timelines to help draw people through the information. It's very helpful. Other thoughts?
Josh, just to make sure you see, Deekman put a link in the chat of the Boston's Imagine Boston 2030, which is a great example of an online
I do,
kind of.
I do see that.
Great.
I will take a look at it. And as consultants with project budgets are love to do, I would point out that that is a much larger overall budget than we have. Not say that the budget we've been dealing with on this project is, I think, has been generous and adequate, but that was they're in a different ballgame. But we will take a look. It's definitely good to look at those, which I think are really good models when they have the funding to spend like that. It's good to see what we can borrow in a very economical way from what they've advanced and innovated on in that process. So let me see. I think I just had a little bit of more information. If no one else has any thoughts on overall plans, so we'll basically get to work on all of that, because I agree that we need to get going and get on top of all that. Oh, Nathan, yes.
I just never took my hand down. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No problem. So as you can see, we are getting close to the end of the process here. We will, this was our 20th meeting. We're projecting likely that we will have meetings in October, November, and December. And maybe even it's probably realistic to think that we'll have one that pops across the new year as we kind of wrap all these pieces up and get the final sort of word with the committee. We have all of that roster of events which is occurring over those next few months as well. We will, I think, which would serve the process well, I think, plan to get in front of the planning board, not just as, I mean, Jeremy and Jessica and Jay are with the planning board often, but I have gone and made a few presentations with the board, so that would probably be a good idea as well, as we sort of round the corner here to do another similar presentation. And on the more immediate horizon, the events which are coming up. So please do enjoy Dedham Day, and hopefully you can all make a little bit of time for that. We will be gathering as much feedback on strategies and have kind of arms open wide for whatever people will give us. So everything you collect at Dedham Day, we'll have a process for Jeremy to get that back to us. Any thoughts we collect along the way through the boards, the open house, the office hours, all of that will be taken in and thought about as we put all this information together. And then, the next big thing for us is really to get rolling and in earnest on the drafting of that plan based upon the outline and moving the information in that direction. Then at the next meeting, which will be Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, I think really the focus will be both reflecting on some of the feedback that we've received so far, if there's any additional feedback from any of you, and then starting to really add much more definition to what the plan itself is looking like and what that process of review is looking like to get you all information in a way that you can deal with it too. So we want to, what I'm imagining is that we're probably going to be looking at some sort of chapter by chapter delivery to the committee so that you all can get this in a manageable flow of information and not say like, give you the full document on December 3rd and say we need your feedback by December 4th, but we'll try to get you things in bite-sized pieces as information gets ready and formatted. So that'll be the goal, and we'll get that hopefully lined up a little bit better in October at our next meeting. And again, everything's being updated on designingdedham2030.org. We'll continue to update everything there. And so this is the resource, which I'm just realizing I don't think we put on any of those boards or anything. I'll talk with Jeremy. We should probably have a little printout at the Dedham Day Dedham event where we refer people to the website, because I think the website is the best source of information. So let me stop this. I don't know if we have any members of the public with us this evening. Did we?
I think we did, but she may have left. And the one thing, Josh, you might think about that we could do for the Dedham Day is to also just have like a sign with a QR code that leads to the webpage.
Yep.
If we could do that, right, because that way people will, they don't have to physically take something home. They can just, you know, look at it with their phone there and walk away.
Good point. Yeah, we can make up a little 8.5 by 11 that we can print out a few
Right.
of and put around.
And we're gonna have some of those lawn signs there too, right? So,
Yep.
Yes, lots of them.
yep.
Great. Any other thoughts or questions?
I know it's kind of a less, seems less substantive than some of our other meetings, but it's really helpful just to get all these kind of logistics in place and understand the plan going on. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
And thank you, co-chairs, for delivering treats to all the members. So they actually had a tangible thing through this process, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it. And I think you set the bar high. So thank you, everyone. And we look, yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna tell you, we were trying to figure out how to do ice cream, but we thought the likelihood was that at least several pints would end up melted on someone's front porch. So
Thank you,
time.
Jessica and Sarah. Thank you very much. Pleasant surprise.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, good night.
Bye.
night, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Josh. Thanks, Jeremy and Michelle.
Thanks.